Hey everybody, so here's our Kumihimo octopus. So I went ahead and strung the beads onto all of our cords, and you can see the color pattern here. So I did colors on opposite sides of the same disc, like diagonal from each other. So there's turquoise and the turquoise, silver, and silver. So the silver over here is across from the turquoise here, and the silver on the side is across from turquoise. And then I did the same up here where it's pink is across from the blue, and then the blue is across from the pink. So pink, pink, blue, blue, silver, silver, turquoise, turquoise. All right, so that's going to give us a pattern similar to this one where the colors are stacked on top of each other. Like you can see orange, yellow, turquoise, metallic, turquoise, clear, orange, yellow, turquoise, metallic, turquoise, clear. So that's going to give you the pattern that we did here. All right, so to start the Kumihimo, we need to do a couple rows without any beads. We want to start by making sure our 32 is at the top here. And what we're going to do is we are going to take our strand and we're going to go across and go up here like this. So one from the bottom up to the top, and now we're going to take one from the top down to the bottom. Now as we do Kumihimo, our cords are slowly going to snake their way around the disc. So once we do our first one, we're going to do it and we're going to turn it to, so once we do the first one, we are going to turn our disc counterclockwise, and we are going to do the same thing. We take one from the bottom up to the top, then we take one from the top down to the bottom. And like I said, we're not adding any beads at this point. We're just trying to get our weave started. Turn it counterclockwise, and again, up from the bottom, down from the top, counterclockwise, up from the bottom, down from the top, counterclockwise, up from the bottom, down from the top. All right, now once we've done that, you can see now our cords are where these two on these two sides are pinched and these ones are spread apart. That's what we're looking for. All right, so what I'm going to have you guys do now is we are going to take this and again turn it counterclockwise. So we want those ones that are pinched to be the ones that's on top and the bottom. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a bead. So we're going to take this one up from the bottom. I'm going to pull it over here and I'm going to release a bead. All right, and then I'm going to lock it in place. Now this bead here, we want it to be in between these two threads. It's going to sit in between those two threads. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing where I take it from the top, I pull it over here, and then I release one bead and it slides down and I lock it in place. Now again, we want that bead to be in between those threads. Now at this point it doesn't really want to sit there, so don't worry about that too much. The next step when we lock these into place is when you're going to worry about it. Okay, so we're going to turn our disc counterclockwise, and now this is where I'm saying we need to make sure that that bead is locked into place. I'm going to pull this up here so you can see it. I'm going to take this cord from the bottom. I'm going to make sure that that bead stays between these two cords. I'm going to pull my cord this way and see how it locked that bead into place. It grabbed that bead. And then I'm going to release one bead and lock it into place. Now this silver one is going to sit between these two threads, okay? So that's what you're going to do. When you're doing it, you're going to take one from the top. You're not going to release your bead until you've locked this bead into place. So once you've gotten a little ways, it's easier to keep them where they're supposed to go. But make sure that he is locked into place. Don't let him, come up here and then you've missed him completely. Make sure he stays down here. Lock that in place, pull this over. Once you've got it pulled over, then you can release one bead. Lock it into place. Now we're going to turn it again, counterclockwise. Again, that little bead you need to make sure that he's going to sit in between those two threads, okay? Pull your bottom cord up, lock him into place, release the bead, and put it down. Same thing again. Take it up. If you have to, push that bead back, pull it over, release one bead, and go in here, all right? So that is all we're gonna do. We're gonna keep doing that around the whole disc, all right? And once you have, like I said, once you have several rows down, everything will want to stay better in place, all right? What I'm also doing is, as I'm doing this, I'm slightly pulling down on the wire tail with my hand to help pull it down the disc, okay? You can see how I'm holding it like that. I'm kind of pulling that down. So we're gonna pick it up, lock that turquoise bead in place. See, lock it in place, release a bead, and go in here. Take it from the top, lock it in place, release the bead, and lock it in the bottom. Turn it, the same thing. So that's all we're gonna do, is we're gonna keep doing this until we get our cord the length that we want it. Now what you need to be careful with is, if you're going to set this down and walk away, remember to take one cord up, release the bead, lock it in, drop it in place, and set it down with 3 warps. That way, when you set it down and you come back later, you will know the 3 warps go at the top. And now all I have to do is take the top one and pull it down to the bottom. All right. So I am just gonna keep on doing that. Like I said, always make sure that that bead stays in there. And then once I have it the length that I want, I will come back and I will show you guys how to tie up all the threads, attach those bead cones, and turn it from a cord into an actual necklace. All right, well, I've got a lot of weaving to do, so I'm gonna let you guys go and I will be back soon. Bye. All right, so if you've gotten to the point where you are done weaving and you still have some beads left, we're gonna go ahead and remove those beads. Now this is the stop bead here that we added, to start with, to keep the beads from falling off. Usually you can pinch it and just pull and it will end up coming straight off. And then you can remove the rest of the beads on that strand. Now if you have some difficulties doing that, like if your bead doesn't want to just pull down, you'll have to undo the thread loop. See how there's that little thread that loops that go around? If you grab that and pull it, oops, then you can pull it out of the bead and then your bead will just pop off. So we're gonna do that to all of our warps and make sure that we take off all the beads, and then I'll show you how to tie everything off. Okay, so now what we want to do before we finish off our wire weave is cut a piece of wire. This is 20 gauge wire, and I've just cut this, I think about 3 inches. Yep, about 3 inches long. We are going to make a loop in it like we did when we started the video. So grab the wire, bend it, move your pliers up, over, around, move your pliers around like this, and in that point you can grab it with the flat nose and you can wire wrap it like so. You only need, again, like 2 or 3 wraps. You don't want too many and you don't want too big of a loop, because this has to fit up inside the bead cone when we're finished. Cut off any excess wire, all right, and flatten down any little bit of tail that we have there. Okay, so now that we have this, we're ready to take our beadwork, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna thread all the tails through this loop and make a knot. I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, are you guys ready to finish off your Kumihimo braid? Look at this. Look how gorgeous that came out. This is the very berry color wave. So when you're at this stage where you've got this to be the length that you want it to be, remember that your cones and your clasp are going to add about 3 inches to the finished length of your braid. So keep that in mind. This is all the beads that I have left. Look at that. We almost used them all. So what we need to do to finish off our braid is we need to do a few rows like we did at the beginning where there are no beads. All right? So let's do this. All right, so I've got my 3 at the top. And I'm going to make sure I lock this last turquoise one in place here. So go 1, turn it counterclockwise. Do 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see how it's starting to close up here. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for it to get all the way nice and tight and closed. All right, so you can see that it's starting to get pinched together nice and tight there. And that's what we're looking for. You want to close off the weave and get it so nice and tight so that we can add a knot above the beadwork. All right, so I think that's pretty good. What I'm gonna do this last one here, is now I wanna pull all the strings and make a knot. So what I'm going to do is I am going to grab it at the bottom up here as close as I can get with my fingers, and I'm going to pull it down. All right, I'm kind of pinching that beadwork right there so nothing can escape. And once I have it pulled down a little bit, I can undo all my warps from my disc. Okay, so once I have it detached from my disc, I'm going to keep that area pinched. I'm going to create a knot. So I'm wrapping it around like 3 of my fingers, crossing it over, going under that thread, come here, grabbing all of those threads, make sure I pull them all through, and then I'm going to work that knot down close to my beadwork. Okay. Now what I want to do is, before I pull it all the way down, is I want to have a piece of wire to put inside that loop. Now if you were smart, unlike me, you'd have a piece already cut. Alright. So we're going to put that in there like that, just to hold it. And then we're going to make our knot nice and tight around the piece of wire. Okay, just like that. Okay, so now we need to tie off our wire like we did at the beginning end where we made a loop. But we don't need to make a really pretty loop. All I'm worried about is tying this all together. So I'm bending the 2 pieces of wire up like this and wrapping the one tail. You want to make sure you have a long piece and a short piece so you have enough wire to wrap your clasp on. So I'm making like this, and then I'm just wrapping this around. I'm going to hold this here, wrap this tail around. Pliers come in handy. Okay, so now we need to attach our piece of wire to our beadwork. So I have this pinched here so that it can't go anywhere. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tails and I'm going to thread them through my wire. So it helps if you kind of make all the tails the same length or very similar to be able to push it through that beading wire. All right. Nope, these last two don't want to go through. Come on. There's one. There's two. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this down towards my little wrap that I did here. Okay. So now I'm going to make a loop by wrapping the thread around 3 of my fingers, crossing it over, and then pulling all those tails through my cording. Okay. And now I want to bring everything nice and tight against my cording here. So I'll scooch that down like that. And then I'm slowly tightening the knot so that it ends up nice and tight above my beadwork. And then I'll go back in and I'll pull like one thread at a time to get it nice and tight. Alrighty. So that's what it should look like at this stage. Now what you're going to want to do is, this is all going to go up inside this bead cone. But before we cut off these tails, we want to glue our knots so that it seals everything together. So make sure, again, like your knot's nice and tight. Okay. So I just have some super glue here, and I am going to glue both knots. I'm going to glue this. This is the side where I started, and it doesn't have any tails to cut off, so you wouldn't have to glue that end. Okay, so now we're just going to glue the ends with some super glue. This end where we started, we don't need to glue it because there's no tails that we're cutting off, but this side has the tails that we need to cut off. So we're going to glue the knot before we cut them. All right, and take our super glue, and what you want to do with the super glue is you want to make sure that you glue the entire knot. This bottle's really hard to squeeze. All right, so you want to make sure you get the whole knot, all sides, underneath, on top, and then a little ways up this cording that's coming off here. I don't know why this bottle is so hard to squeeze. Okay. So once we have that, we are going to let that dry just a little bit, and then we will add the end cones. While this end dries, we can do this end. We can finish this end off. So what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your bead cones, and you're going to thread the wire through the bead cone. You're going to push it so it's nice and snug against your beadwork, okay? Then you need a pair of round nose pliers, and you're going to grab the wire that's coming out of the bead cone right at the top of the bead cone. And again, like I said, make sure that it's pushed up against your beadwork. All right, so we're going to take it, we're going to bend it out at an angle like so. You're going to adjust your pliers so it's like this. So that's creating the space for your wire wraps to go. Now we're going to make the actual loop. Let me switch hands so you can see better. We're going to pull this up over the loop down towards our bead cone. we are going to readjust our pliers so that one is in that loop and one is sitting on top of the loop, and we're going to finish making our loop by pulling this wire past us like so. So now you can see you have a loop. At this stage, we're going to hook in 1/2 of our clasp. Okay, like that. Now we're going to take our chain nose pliers and I'm going to grab a hold of that loop to hold it steady. And I'm going to fill that space that we created in the first step with wire. Okay, so you're going to wrap it however many times it takes to fill in that gap. You would like to try to have at least 2 or 3 wraps. If you have a few more, then that's okay. All right, once you have it wrapped, maybe 1 more wrap just to get it really nice and snug there. All right, you're going to take your wire cutters. You're going to take that flat side of the wire cutters, not the pinch side, but the flat side. You're going to place it against your coil here. Make sure that you're not clipping your loop or anything like that. Clip it off as close as you can get it. And then take a pair of your chain nose pliers again and just flatten down any sort of little bit of wire tail that is still sticking up. So there you go. That's how we're going to add the bead cones. Now on the other side, it's going to be the exact same thing. So this isn't quite dry yet, the glue. So we're going to let that dry a little bit longer. Okay, so now our glue has dried. We are going to clip off all this tails that we have here. I'm going to measure real quick and see how much tail we have left. So we have the shortest we have is at 1 foot, and the longest ones have another 3 inches. So you have about 1 foot of cord left after making approximately 18 inches of beadwork, which I like to have extra. I don't like to use every little last bit. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and cut off our cord here. And the reason that we glued a little bit up this section here is so that when we cut here, we're not going to fray, because we're going to cut and it's still going to be glued. Alright. So there we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pull this all up inside of our bead cone. So we're going to thread that on there. Make sure you tuck that knot inside there. And you might need to have a pair of pliers to help you kind of tug that down, because you want this nice and tight against your beadwork, right? Once you have your bead cone on there, we're going to do the same thing we did on the other side, where we grab it with a pair of round nose, bend it, adjust up over our loop down toward the cone, adjust our pliers, push it past, and then we're going to loop in our other half of our clasp like so. And then we are going to go ahead and wire wrap. So I'm grabbing that loop with my chain nose pliers and I'm wrapping around. Now if you have a hard time wrapping with this tail, you can always grab the tail end of your wire with another pair of flat nose or chain nose pliers and help you wrap it around nice and snug. And again, you want like 2 or 3 wraps. You can definitely do more. I'm doing as many as it takes to really snug that up next to my beadwork. So I'm probably going to have about 4 or 5 wraps, which is perfectly okay. With necklaces, it adds a little bit of length. With a bracelet, it might be more of a problem because it would be adding length to your finished piece, but the necklace isn't going to be an issue. Now again, we're going to clip that away. I'm always pointing that wire away from our face. Clip it off. If you have any little bit of a tail, you can see a little bit of a tail sticking up right here. You're going to take your pair of pliers and just kind of squish it down next to the piece. All right, look at that. Now you have your finished necklace. Look how pretty, pretty, pretty. And it will close like So, well, there you guys go. Thank you guys so much for watching my Kumihimo with beads video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope your projects come out fabulous. And I will see you guys later. Bye.